Hey guys, welcome to the SOBs who love SOV. I am Becca from In the Mic of Madness. You probably know that because that's the podcast that you have subscribed to, and this is our spin-off show. I like to say this is our Facts of Life to the In the Mic of Madness's different strokes. So I am here with my two lovely co-hosts, Tony Masiello of SOVhorror.com.
Hey!
And Slade Shepherd.
Hello.
All right, and we are here to talk about something pretty cool. So this is actually courtesy of Tony, really. But we are going to be talking about David R. Williams' lost shot-on-video film, Metal Noir, from 1990, that was actually restored and released by Tony on SOVhorror.com.
Yep.
Yeah.
All praise the dark metal.
That's right. But first, before we get to that, again, you guys may not think the SOV is pertinent to our time right now, but you know what it is. Okay, so insert audio here. You guys will hear it later too. SOV in the news. Okay, so I have two items. I don't know if you guys have any, but one is, this is more of a, I was probably drunk one night and I saw Ron Bonk post on Facebook that SRS is having like a sale, and one of the things they had was something called Death Reel, which is Super 8 movies made from 83 to 85 by the Polonia brothers in a little collection. So I grabbed that. Okay, and my other one has to do with you, Tony. So, last week, we found out that Tony works for RiffTrax. And I think we may have even been talking before the show, and you mentioned that there were some shot-on-video films that RiffTrax have done, and one was called Roller Gator. So, I decided to find Roller Gator. So, I was very pleasantly surprised to find that Tubi TV, which is a free service, they have a ton of RiffTrax and Mystery Science Theater 3000 episodes from Shout TV, I think. But they do have a Roller Gator as one of them. And actually, what's funny is I was watching the Miami Connection first, and Roller Gator came on as like, you might be interested in. And I was like, well, hell yes, I am. So I would recommend this to anyone. Let's just say that I think that Slade and I were disappointed when we found out that the alligator didn't have like 4 skates on his feet. However, after watching it, I think if that happened, you wouldn't even flinch. Like, it would not have even added to the absurdity in the least. It is batshit crazy and hilarious and just pure cheese and pure fun. So, anyway, that's my mini movie review. Roller Gator. What were some of the other ones you said?
Well, we just did the Feeders movies. So we did Feeders 1 and Feeders 2. That's
right. So what's going on in SOVhorror.com world?
Well, we just, Purveyors of Blood came out last month. And that's a SOV, Lost SOV from 2004, directed by a female director named Remley. And that just came out, and we actually just announced.
And you're in that, correct?
I am in that. Yes, I play a sadomasochistic hillbilly who's obsessed with corn oil. And I guess I did such a good job. I actually showed the movie to a friend over last weekend, and she didn't even recognize me in it, which was pretty funny. So, but we also just announced we're putting out pretty soon here in a couple weeks a little cable access show that I did in the early 2000s called Mondo Bizarro, which is kind of it's a hosted show, hosted by a lady named Amber Glossine, who was in a punk band out here called the Glossines in San Diego. And she hosts these weird and wacky educational films, mainly like drug education, sex education, think those really inaccurate films that we would watch in high school. And so pretty much it's her hosting those, and it's got drive-in intermission ads, vintage trailers, burlesque dances. It's a fun little show. It's 6 episodes, 30 minutes apiece, so it's about 3 hours, and I think people will dig it. It's not really shot on video, but it's been sitting in my vaults for quite a while now. We never really released it other than to some friends and stuff. And everyone always asks me, why aren't you going to put out Mondo Bizarro? So finally decided, hey, let's put it out. So, yep.
Right. And I said, I will give you my address. You send me a copy and I'll review it because that's right up my alley.
Nice. Awesome. I'll send both of you guys
it's coming out towards the end of the month?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So, and then towards the end of the month, what a segue, Slade. You didn't even mean it. If you are in Bowling Green, Kentucky, January 25th, Slade and I will actually be at the Vet City Con. We are just going to be there, right? We could say we were going to be representing the podcast, but we're not really. But we're going to be there, and we're cool.
You're going to just hang out with the vendors and all the guests and get some good food.
So I will.
It'll be a great time.
Yeah, I'll be for at least part of the time, I'll be at Dwayne Whitaker's table. So Maynard from Pulp Fiction. And you can also, if you probably have never met me, but you could also meet two of the stars of my new movie, The Embalmers. So Marcella and Johnny Shandor. So we're gonna have some fun in Bowling Green, kids. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get Slade to help me steal a car.
Well, you're not supposed to talk about it.
Let's steal a car tonight.
You got to take something Hobgoblins for Dwayne to sign.
Oh, yes, I know, because he didn't give me any Hobgoblins crap. I was like, are you kidding me? And then I just found out the other night. He was actually in Staying Alive. And so I had to like send, like the video of Frank Stallone's Far From Over. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, I am the worst fangirl you have ever freaking met. Hobgoblins and Far From Over. Yeah. Like, shut up. Never impressed with Pulp Fiction.
We don't talk about those movies anymore.
No, he doesn't like to. He's the one that told me about Staying Alive.
We need to get out to Cinema Wasteland and check out some of the guests a year, like sometime in the future, because I hear the environment there is very similar.
Yeah, so I went to the smaller version that's in, I guess it was in October, but the bigger one is in April.
Yeah.
But I don't think I can make it because I think I have something else. I think I have filming on a movie.
Uh-oh.
So, but yeah, it was pretty fun though. It was a very relaxed atmosphere. Yes.
Yeah, at conventions, it's sometimes I'll take and catch myself and I'll be like, do I even want to take a walk up to them? Is it going to be like me telling them the exact same thing or a similar story for the 100th time while they sit there pretending to actually give a shit?
Right.
So,
and I mean, and a lot of them they're very nice, they're very gracious, and they understand that's your first time. But yeah, that's got to get old to them after a while,
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, there are only so many times that, like, men can, like, drool on Danielle Harris before she's going to be like, okay, I'm just going to look at my phone while that guy walks by the table. I mean, like...
Yeah, it's really unfortunate at Whorehound the last year, like, where she had that panic attack. She had a real bad panic attack. I guess being in close proximity with all the people breathing. It's like, hey, I really liked you in all your movies.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and probably that's the exception, but as we all know, just in social media, in any interaction we have when we go out to the store, there's like 1,000 people who are just totally just fine, don't bug you at all, but there's that one person who does, and that's the person you remember.
The mouth breather. The rapey looking mouth breathers. What hotel are you staying in, Danielle?
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, so convention experiences there.
Yes.
But we will not breathe on you if you go to Vet City Com. So.
Maybe just a little, because we require oxygen to live. But,
Right. I don't think I breathe out of my mouth.
No, not out of my mouth. That's just weird. I've always thought that was so weird.
Yeah. All right, so on to that was SOB in the news and a lot of random shit.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
But we will get on to Metal Noir from 1990. I already said it was directed by David R. Williams, who was going to actually, who graciously said he would be on the show or do an interview with us, but we were doing it way before he had time to actually be able to do the interview. But Tony Masiello knows this movie probably shot for shot and knows everything that he had on the commentary, so he said, just listen to the commentary. You'll probably know everything. So, Tony, how did you come upon this film to even restore it?
Yeah, so I had been working on a documentary film. I think I maybe mentioned it before here, called SOV: The True Independence, which since has become a web series. But I was working on that, and I had taken a break for a while because I'm also a musician, so I kind of got sidelined by band stuff. And when I decided to go back into working on the SOV project, I started to revamp the website, and I thought, I'd do some reviews of some movies. And so I kind of started digging through some tapes I had, and I had a tape that it was given to me by director Jay Wolfel. You guys might know him. He directed The First Tale in Things, as well as Demonicus Demon Gladiator from Hell, amongst other films. But Jay had given me this tape, and it was like a dub tape. It had a few movies on it, and the one that caught my eye was Hugh Gallagher's first movie called Dead Silence. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to check out Dead Silence. And this is before SRS had re-released it. It was very obscure, hard to find movie. So I was pretty excited about watching it. And as I'm kind of fast forwarding to find the movie, I realized the movie before it, labeled Metal Noir, is also shot on video. And I said, wow, what is this movie? I've never heard of this one. And so I started watching the movie, and I just immediately fell in love with this movie. And, it was one of those tapes, too. It wasn't a very good dub. It was probably a dub of a dub of a dub. And so it was for anyone who used to buy VHS bootlegs, we'd buy those uncut prints of Cannibal Holocaust from Japan and stuff like that. It looked like that. It didn't look very good. It was really hard to make out at times. The credits were pretty much unwatchable. But when I first started it, immediately I see Hugh Gallagher's name and Charles Pinion, who's also an SOV director, and I was like, wow, now I'm really excited, and the movie was just awesome. I love the movie, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but the cool thing was I reached out to David Williams, and I got his contact from Hugh, I believe, and, just asked him, hey, you ever going to release this? Maybe I can release it for you. And he agreed, and we struck up a deal and a friendship, and that was the beginning of SOV horror DVD line.
So I'm so
thankful to David.
What was his reaction when he gets a random call
That's what I was about to
from
ask.
some random dude who's like, hey, I found this movie that you probably forgot you completely made. I found it on a dub tape. I want to release it. What was his reaction to that?
I think, I think he was probably really surprised. I'm guessing, from what I've talked with him and stuff, I think he had kind of all about forgotten about the movie. It was never released initially, and it was his first film. And, he's went on to do many other movies. And I think, he was probably pretty surprised when I hit him up, and, I'm presuming maybe flattered because I was telling him how much I loved it and all that. And, he was really great though. David's awesome.
Okay, now I'm gonna make two disclaimers here, and one is a shout out / disclaimer / apology in advance. So I usually won't listen to a podcast or watch a review on a movie, like a spoiler review on a movie that I haven't seen. I was on a really long drive to and from Toledo, Ohio, a month or so ago. And I had pretty much exhausted all the podcasts that I need to catch up on. And I was like, then as I'm sitting there, I get a notification that No Budget Nightmares, so Doug and Mo with No Budget Nightmares, that they did Metal Noir. And I was like, I'm like, I haven't seen it yet. I had it at home. I figured we were going to do it on the show. And I'm like, I'm going to make an exception. And I listened to the whole thing. And I really am glad that I did. Because I felt like when I was watching it, I kind of felt like I was watching it again. But I will apologize because, and especially now since I watched the movie like a week or so ago, listened to their podcast like 2 or 3 weeks ago, if I say anything that sounds like I'm just copying off of what they said, I am not. So there were many things that they kind of made mention of and like, you know, kind of correlations between, oh my God, that guy looks like a blah, blah, blah. That when I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my God, they're so right. Like, and there were some that I'm like, I totally would have come up with that on my own, you know. So Doug and Mo, love you. Loved your podcast. And I'm not copying off of you if I say anything that you said.
Their podcast is great. If you like our stuff, you definitely should check them out too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely champions of, well, it's called No Budget Nightmares. So yeah, definitely champions of low budget, no budget horror. So yeah,
they were really cool to do it.
Yeah, and they're awesome guys. So basically, it's synopsis. So Lauren, she's a writer. She's got writer's block. She does the stereotypical thing like, well, I'm going to go rent a house out in the country so I can, you know, finish up this book, whatever. And of course, there's weird shit going on at this house that the realtor blabs to her immediately, even though she's not supposed to tell her. But she stays in the house anyway, and then crazy shit ensues, pretty much, right?
Yeah. Her name's Laurel, though, by the way.
Oh, Laurel. Okay, and the other thing, too, is I was totally with you, Doug and Mo. I was like, is it Mark? Or is it Mort? Or is it Mork? Now, I even messaged Tony, and he never messaged me back, but I do notice in the end credits, which you are responsible for, that it does say Mort.
Yes, it's Mort.
And it is Mort. Okay. Because she has, like, this weird, I mean, it's almost like halfway, like, between, like, Iowa and Boston accent. She's just, like, very weird mishmash. So she'll say things like, what's happening? Or whatever. So when she's saying, like, Mort, you can't tell what she's saying. So we've got a guy in the basement. So the beginning of it, we've got a guy in the basement, and he is, he's killing himself with this, like, rudimentary, almost like a medieval torture weapon. All this stuff in the basement, I have to say, I thought was really cool and like really atmospheric. And I like the way it was all shot, and I like it even when they bring then we find out his wife in later and stuff. They have some really good scenes.
That unique, like, spike, like, it's almost like a spiked collar. Was that made just specifically for the movie, or is that like some kind of costumes, like metal costume stuff?
If I remember correctly, I think David found that at some like S&M shop or something. So.
Whoa, okay. Wasn't that the S&M flea market? Because that looks like somebody made that in their damn garage.
Yeah, that'd be.
I mean, talk about
making with that.
Talk about a great scene too. You know, what I love about that opening scene, and just to kind of talk about it a little more, is, you know, it's Charles Pinion, and he's in there. And it opens on him, and he's got this big metal ring, and he starts jabbing it in his face in shadow. So it's metal and it's Noir all before the opening credits, which I thought was just genius and great. And Charles, I mean, his performance, I mean, just
great.
He sells it. He sells it. He makes it seem so painful.
His performance and Wild Bill's in it made the movie for me. Like, he was great.
Yeah.
As far as who gave, I think, the best, like, legit, like, who I would say gave the best performance, I felt like he did. And again, even with, you said he was, like, jabbing himself, like, in the shadows. Like, sometimes you see that and you're like, oh, great. These people had, like, this had, like, negative $5 budget, right? They can't even show you, like, a guy putting a nail in his face. But it was really effective. It was super effective.
It was, what, $1,500? Like, less than that for the entire thing?
You know, I'm not sure what the budget was, you know, but I know he flew out Charles, because Charles was out of Florida at the time. It was shot in New York. I mean, there was a bit of a budget involved in the film. So,
well, I mean, renting that house alone had to have had to have been a significant budget too, I would think, because it was a pretty cool
I think
house.
the basement was David's actual house, wasn't it?
Was it?
I believe maybe so. Yeah.
But
the trailer was in their family as well. From the trailer. So.
Oh, I love that.
Oh. And we'll get to the location thing, because there is a point in time where there is a little bit of a continuity issue with the location that I'll talk about in a little bit. It's like supposed to be like this kind of cottage out in the country, I'm guessing. They kind of just show it from the road. You're kind of far away from it. It's this like, nice little cottage or whatever. The only problem is like later she's at the front door letting her boyfriend out. And it's obvious their house is all the way around. The house that they're filming that part in is only like 10 feet from the road. It's not even the same. Like, I think it was like wooden, like in that shot, but like it's actually brick when they show it.
Yeah, I'm down. It's the same.
Yeah,
house.
I think the house. Yeah, the house exteriors. A lot of those were, I believe, shot by Hugh Gallagher, who did the initial edit of the film, and I believe he shot some extra B-roll. He was also actually the DP on the film as well,
Yes.
So he shot some extra B-roll, and a lot of those shots of the house are, I believe, from that B-roll stuff that he shot.
I was going to say, I mean, it looks like they didn't even, like, have to get permission. Like, they were just like, this is a pretty house, nobody's home, we're going to get 5 minutes of footage, and we're going to just keep reusing it, and we're going to recolor it, and make it flash, and do all kinds of fun stuff, and then that's going to be our exterior for the whole movie. Creativity, kids, creativity. Bad shit went down in this house. And then we have a woman who is Laurel, goes to look at this house. And she's with her realtor. She basically tells her, yeah, shit went down in this house, but I'm not supposed to tell you. And then she goes on to tell her in painstaking detail for like 10
Immediately
minutes.
after saying she can't.
Yes, like literally doesn't take a breath. I'm not supposed to tell you about this, but you know what happened here? And it goes to cutting into like just different flashes of the house. And it seems like she's reading about 4 pages of a like Wikipedia page or something about the house. Tony, was there an explanation for that? I mean, I know not everything has an explanation, but I'm like, did they have her come in later, just do the voiceover and just handed her the paper and she wasn't thinking she was needing to act like she was talking to somebody?
Well, I believe, actually, I think that was David's ex-wife who played that part.
Yep.
And I think she probably just did it to help him out. I presume she wasn't an actress, as you said, with the kind of wooden performance she gives. And it is interesting because, like you said, when she starts kind of giving the history of the house, that's when we quit seeing her and Laurel talking, and it goes to all these shots of the house, as well as these kind of cool Evil Dead type panning shots throughout the basement and stuff. And yeah, I mean, she more than likely, I presume that she's reading off of a piece of paper. Sure, she's reading the script. It's a lot of dialogue right there too. You pretty much get the whole like plot of the movie in that. And you're just 5 minutes.
You're just like, okay, I'm good, I got it, and she just
keeps going. Yeah, you know what this reminded me of, Rebecca, was the short off the basement where the guy is taking and buying the evil house up in the hills, and this real estate agent's just constantly just telling her, oh yeah, there's so many people murdered here. Like then he took and killed himself and disappeared, and he's like, I'll take it.
Yeah. I'm good with that.
Well, Laurel's a horror writer too, so she
Right.
thinks it's going to be a good inspiration for her book.
Yeah, I think he was too in the in the short.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
That's my favorite author.
But
Yeah.
But what was weird is like it wasn't even like the real estate agent knew that. Like if I'm the real estate agent and I know this house is maybe haunted or had some weird shit going down, and I've got like a horror writer, director, something coming in to look at the house. Well, yeah, I'm probably going to say all that stuff because it's going to intrigue them. But she tells her like after the fact, and she didn't even know. Like, way to make a sale, lady.
But we find out what's going on with that later.
We do. Spoiler alert, everybody. So, but I already told you I listened to basically the entire, like it could have been the commentary that Doug and Mo did, and then I watched the movie, and I enjoyed it about 20 times more, because I think there are things I would have missed had I not known. But yeah, so Laurel's got writer's block, and Mark. I just have like M on all my notes. He calls, and he reminds me of Nick from Family Ties. Mallory's boyfriend. Hey.
Oh Lord.
Because he had, I think it's the earring. It had to have been the one.
I have to take a look that up. It's been forever since I watched that show.
I was just like, I had to look up, strangely enough, I remembered that the actor's name was Scott Valentine. I could not remember what the character's name was. This is how much shit is stuffed in my brain, kids.
Well, he kind of tells her that she needs to get away. She needs a break. She needs a break from everything. And it's kind of neat, that it is Hugh Gallagher is playing that role, the director of the Noir trilogy. And as far as I know, I believe that might be one of his only acting roles. I can't think of another movie that I saw him act in.
He was on Family Ties as well.
You know when she takes and finally goes out and they go to that park, that's like one of my favorite parts in the film, because it's so weird and kind of surreal, especially with the super. Was it shot on Super VHS? I can't recall.
I believe it may have been. I don't exactly recall either. I know it's the same camera, I believe, that Hugh used on a Gorgasm. I seem to recall. So. Yeah,
it's like that's an actual park like that has all these like weird like metal statues out in the middle of nowhere, or
I think it's a park. Yeah, it's got a bunch of metal sculptures and stuff. And I agree, that scene is so kind of cool and just surreal, and the visuals really go with the soundtrack too. We haven't mentioned the soundtrack at all yet.
That's true.
But I absolutely love the music in this movie. The music is so weird and kind of out there and very synthy, but it's almost like if Sonic Youth did a synth score or something. It's very kind of strange and interesting.
It takes and reaches out and kind of like at some points it'll be smooth, and then other points it'll take and like have harsh tones, and like she taking and walking out to a mobile home that's a dilapidated mobile home in the middle of nowhere, and just I'll go inside. All right,
why not?
Why not?
Okay, can I say that I wrote in the notes? When she's walking down that road, and they keep showing her, she's got on stonewashed jeans, like mom jeans, like up to her boobs, a white t-shirt tucked in. She's got the arms, the sleeves are rolled up. It's got like some kind of neon print on it. She is like way too tan, way too blonde, has on these like neon sunglasses, and like those like white shoes that weren't quite Keds. They had like the shoelaces around the edges of them. And I was like, she looks probably a lot like I did my first day of 9th grade.
That was the style back then,
Yeah, that would have been the time. I was like, dude, did I dress like that? I think I did.
She's very, very
I think I think they initially shot it too. I think David said that he believes they started shooting in like 88 or 89. So it's definitely 80s.
Yep. Well, no one really remembers, but 88 to 91 was just a dark, dark hole.
Did they ever advertise this in Draculina at all?
Yeah, and so Hugh actually wrote a great article about the making of the movie that's in a issue of Draculina, and they did some other press bits about it coming out, but unfortunately the distributor who picked it up kind of fell apart, and it was never released until we got
Draculina being Hugh Gallagher's. Was it solely his
magazine? Yeah. Yes, that was his publication. Yeah.
He said he's keeping the site up until he sells every single one of them. So go and get them.
Nice.
Get them, kids. Get them. Yeah. So anyway, we were at the mobile home. Yeah. And I don't understand why it's... I mean, I guess I would walk in too. I mean, because she's been walking a long time. I would at least think to go get a drink of water or something maybe. But she really lingers in there.
You know, all the statues and everything else. And then when all the weird, surreal shit that she sees inside of it, right out of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Which, was it Wild Bill? Like, did I hear that correctly in the commentary? Like, he took and just grabbed all kinds of roadkill and...
my God.
And boiled the meat off of it. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Hey, you do what you gotta do. Hey, at least they boiled it, unlike the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They just grabbed a bunch of shit and they just, like, let it sit there. They said, I don't know if you guys have heard this story, but, like, all of the, like, guts and stuff they got from, like, a veterinarian's office. They would get it from, like, the dumpster after hours. Ugh. And, this is obviously back in a different time, but it would just stink up so bad because it was all just, like, rotting animals.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine.
And Gunnar Hansen stinking up the place.
I can imagine that made set life kind of difficult at times in the Texas heat.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you read Chainsaw Confidential? It's Gunnar Hansen's book.
I have not.
It is like so great. He goes through the shooting chronologically. Or no, yeah, he goes through the shooting chronologically, which is not necessarily the movie. And like, so I was reading it and I would go to the parts in the movies to see what he was talking about. But yeah, I mean, it was so low budget and just so like, some of it was just, some of it was Tobe Hooper, but some of it was just, like you said, like, the heat. Like I always thought, like, when they're in the van, when the kids are in the van at the beginning, I'm just, like, I always get this weird sense that's, like, just humid and gross and everybody stinks and it's just sweaty and nasty. Well, and then come to find out, the van didn't have air conditioning.
Ugh.
But they had to roll up all the windows for the sound. And so, yeah, it was pretty damn dank and stank in that thing. Ooh. And so I'm like, I can't believe that, like, I felt it. Like, it's like, it was so stinky that I could see the stink.
It's this odor trails wafting off all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And he couldn't wash his costume. Because they only had one. And it had to be, like, the same the whole time. And so he had to wear the same costume the entire time, and it was just stinking to high heaven. I mean, he's sitting there dealing with these, like, dead animals and stuff, and Tobe Hooper wouldn't let him break character. And so, like, nobody liked him. Nobody wanted to be around him because he smelled the high heaven.
Got to finish this movie up so I can take and pay back the mob.
Yeah.
I really dug all the Evil Dead-esque shots with throughout the trailer and throughout the movie. Honestly, it was
there were a lot of those like those POV shots of like the thing, the demon, the big bad coming through a door and stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those movies you can tell they actually took time into thinking about how they were composing their shots. And all that. And Charles Pinion actually tells a great story on the commentary. I guess he was real impressed by David's directing style, because what David would do is, I guess, if someone would flub a line, he'd just switch angles. And so that's why you have a lot of camera, there's lots of different angles. Lots of SOVs, it's like master shot theater, what I mean? It's
God.
Set up the camera like a security camera, and there you go, Where this one has lots of cuts. There's lots of, different angle changes and stuff like that, which is really cool.
555 with all its lingering shots. Just in the one room it was filmed in.
Yes, that's right. The one room with the green walls that was an office, a police station, a bedroom.
Just the camera angles and Charles and Wild Bill's performances in this, it's just it really did have a really cool dreamlike feeling to it in a lot of segments. So that's what really took and struck me about it, and to the score, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but then there's the one other variable we haven't talked about that I liked. No, it's Eric.
Oh.
The boyfriend. Okay, so I always like to just write down my first impressions of a character when I see them. I put Skinny Harry was probably in the Bullet Boys Batman half shirt.
Good Lord.
He was a hot 1990 mess. But but he looks like a guy I would have dated. For sure.
One, he was actually, I guess he was kind of a musician out of New Jersey. And he put out a few records and stuff. The actor's name is Scott Mirror.
The argument about you're not supposed to talk about music or religion to anybody.
Yeah.
But that's not really what it is, though. What's the saying? Politics or religion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like
you
that.
should never discuss, if you want to keep your friends, never discuss politics or religion. So I was like, okay, they changed it up a little bit, but okay.
But yeah, they're having sex, and then the camera, while Laura and Eric are having sex, the camera pans to the top, and then all of a sudden we cut to Charles and Judy, and Charles is we didn't really talk about their characters much, but Charles is kind of the crux of the story. He's really the guy who went mad. He went to the Middle East to discover this. Yeah, he went over to the Middle East and he made this discovery out there, and came back and killed his wife and then killed himself. So he's the guy who kills himself with the ring. And so while Laurel and Eric are having sex, we get to see the Madleys have sex. And they're covered in blood and having this real passionate lovemaking.
Which their scene was way hotter.
For sure.
Swapping Caro syrup, between their mouths. And it's just, oh God, I can only imagine that by the end of it, they were just, stuck together.
You could probably hear, somebody spitting just to get their hand unstuck off of somebody's boob, sorry. But yeah, I like that. I like the change.
The juxtaposition,
Yeah, but their sex scene was way hotter than the normal people. Woof. And then also, I love that I have just written down here that I love that he doesn't take off his headband during sex.
Or his tidy whities.
Yes, I don't think they ever got truly naked. Yeah, she had her bathing suit or something on the whole time. Yeah. Ooh. Woof. Okay.
Well, I'm glad he didn't take his tidy whities off.
Yes. No offense, Scott, if you're watching. I already said I would have fucking dated you for sure.
I didn't really mention it earlier, but I actually had to re-edit this movie. So this was re-edited from multiple sources. Because the master tape was destroyed in a flood. It had got it all molded.
Man.
And I had to cut this together from a work print and from my version, as well as I was able to get the soundtrack to the movie. And I literally cut this back together frame by frame.
Wow.
To match it perfect.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, and there...
Took about 6 months.
And I did know that you did that it was... I mean, didn't know you... it was... that painstaking, but I did know that you did it pretty much frame by frame. But there were very few points where you could tell it's he just couldn't find this. This was the best 5 frames he could find. There were, you know what I mean? There were very few times of that. So kudos to you.
And that stuff was typically from the original VHS tape. The stuff that looks really bad, that's from the original VHS tape. And it's just that stuff was lost. That was the only source for it. So.
Now, how much of it would you say, if any, did you end up just cutting out? Stuff that was just kind of superfluous and you didn't have good enough footage of it?
Nothing.
Okay,
nothing.
You're every damn frame is in there.
Well, since DVDs come out, I mean, this kind of brings up a topic. I kind of wonder your guys' opinion on it, honestly, is a lot of these filmmakers are kind of revisiting their movies and they're re-editing the films, Splatter Farm's a great example. The DVD of that is a new edit of the movie, opposed to the VHS edit. And my thought has always been, and when I decided to take this on, I was like, I want it to be the original edit. I want it to be how it was originally intended to be seen by audiences back in 1990, Obviously, with today's technology and all that, it's a lot easier to go in there and fix problems that existed before. But I try to leave it how the movie was. Like I said, I literally try to match it frame by frame.
Or to say...
Because to me, it was important to keep that original vision,
Exactly, because some of the stuff, too, is probably kept into these movies for time, for padding.
Oh, for sure.
But that adds to some of the charm. I mean, and that is... I mean, and I get it. Anything that you ever make... you go back and you're like, man, if I could fix this, I sure would, you know?
Sure.
But no, I'm with you. Like, I want to see how it was intended to be.
I've got two things on that. With that, you know, somebody can always come after you and take and do another edit if you take and preserve all the original content, you know, and make it however they want. But boarding house,
Sure.
boarding.
Oh gosh, that's not one of them.
Jesus Christ! I watched the director's cut first, and holy shit! Oh, that's a rough one.
Yeah, there's some time where it's like, sometimes you're like, it's really good that somebody pulled the cocaine from the director and said, hey, let's do this for you.
Yeah, just the gardener popping up every so often was the only thing that kept me watching after a while. The groundskeeper, I love him so much.
Oh, he's so great.
But yeah, it's I believe that it should be preserved, and then you know, if somebody wants to take and do like an edit on it afterwards, you know, they're more than, you know, you
I just think they should put both versions, you know? Like, I think there's nothing wrong, especially with SOVs. You think these guys were editing with primitive technology.
Yes.
They didn't have Final Cut Pro. They didn't have Premiere. You know, they didn't have these programs that we use today that make it easy. You know, it's very simple to edit these days.
Right, I will sit there in a stupid YouTube video on Premiere, and I will spend 15 minutes trying to, like, toggle back and forth to get, like, a millisecond of sound or whatever. They didn't have that. It's, like, pretty much, well, good enough.
And so, like, sure, you can't blame some of these guys for wanting to go back and tighten up the movies a little bit and make them better. I guess my only hope is when they do that, you should give us both versions, you know, for the people who want to see it the way it originally was, and then, you know, sure, your new cut that is, you know, better.
Well, in the new cut, okay, in this case, the new cut should be what they were trying to get to, but because we know these guys, a lot of them, they had to rent the equipment, they like rent the space, and they only had a certain amount of time, whatever. So it might have been like, you know what, I would really like to cut this little part out, but I don't have the time. So if it was, this is how I would have done it had I had all of this new technology at my disposal, this is what I would have given you. That to me is okay, but again, I want the original cut too.
I can imagine there's...
I would sit there and just watch... I would watch days and days and days of, like, pretty much any horror movie. I will watch the behind the scenes and the deleted scenes and alternate takes. Like, I love that stuff.
I can imagine that there's always that pressure to take and make a feature length, like, to take and pad it enough to where it takes and gets to that point.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, not everybody is the Polonia brothers. They can't just, like, you know, pad, like, half of a movie with another movie.
They record, like, 4 movies and just...
hey, listen to our last podcast.
So we got this hot, gooey 6. And
right, which I just realized I said, meanwhile in the basement, Dana and Sid Vicious rubbing blood all over themselves with gross, sloshy sound effects.
I can imagine what the actual sound effects were like too.
Oh, no kidding. Ugh.
They both seemed into it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think they were actually boyfriend and girlfriend at the time.
Oh, nice.
Well. You can tell they're definitely into it. You can tell they're into it.
Like, I mean, I don't want to, like, belabor the point, but their scene was actually pretty hot. Like, I mean, hot and sticky, but it was pretty hot. So, yeah, that would make sense that they had some chemistry in real life, too. I've either got it backwards on my notes, we're talking about it backwards, and who really fucking cares? But when her car breaks down, so she goes for that, like, a long drive, and her car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, she stops, and, like... she pulls over, so her car's still working. So she pulls over, turns the car off. She pops the hood. She looks, puts the hood back down, and then just goes, grabs her keys, and goes. Like, doesn't even try to jiggle a wire or, like, try to start the car again or anything.
She's like one of those guys that, like, has to take and pretend like they actually know how to take and fix vehicles. They open up the hood and like, yeah, that's tough. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, they could have even put like some dry ice, you know, to give like the radiators blown effect or something. But she just looked at it like, oh yeah, you know, that belt's broken, and just like it's like done with it. I'm like, before I'm gonna be hiking for miles and miles, I'm gonna be jiggling some wires. You know, like I'm going to be starting the car till it's flooded. Yeah, so she comes back and the chest won't open, so she gets the pipe wrench and everything. And it's because all of that, of course, all that stuff, some subset of whatever the hell happened during that was a dream, of course, which is a theme in this movie. But yeah, she opens it with the pipe wrench and she finds the thing. Now, I do have a question though. Like you said that you think you got it at an S&M shop. Like I was looking very carefully because okay, you couldn't you could maybe put it on like a bracelet or an armband. Like you could slip it over your hand, but it didn't look like it had a hinge or anything. And even if like it was so small, it looked like maybe it was like a toddler collar.
Yeah, I thought it was a collar.
Oh.
I mean, it looked like it could be a collar, but it didn't have like a hinge or something to where it would open.
You know what? I always kind of took it as, it always reminded me of a crown, almost, not like almost like a crown of thorns, and it is of the dark god, except it's this crown of, metal.
It's just a little smaller than a crown. It's more like a halo of nails.
And she fiddles with that thing throughout the movie so much, just taking in like pressing her hands up against it to see if she'll get cut or just putting pressure. So it's like, stop, you're gonna get cut. Just stop it.
The adult in you comes out like, oh my god, woman, you go get a tetanus shot. Okay?
You don't know where that thing's been.
Yeah, really.
Especially if it's been in a S&M shop.
Oof. Yes. Yeah, like it does look gently used. Let's just say that much. Yes, this was not shiny new forged like we bought these nails at Menards and stuck them in this collar thing. But Menards is probably a little too regional. Home Depot, we'll go with that. This is one thing that I really loved, and this like spoke to my childhood heart. So in her office, first of all, she has a typewriter. It's an electric typewriter, but it's a typewriter. Which I cannot imagine having been a writer and had to write things on a freaking typewriter. That is insane to me. But she has one of those. I think every white trash person in America wanted one of those. She has like that wicker throne. Did you guys catch that? Like that huge chair that like
big
if you
wicker chairs, yeah.
Yes, so if you sat in it, it was about 3 feet. The top was 3 feet from your head and about 2 feet out. So it was like basically like a throne that like somebody who lived in a trailer could afford.
Those were really popular back then. I swear, I've sat in those types of chairs. You know.
No, those were popular. And there's another thing in the living room that was really popular, and that's the it's kind of a wicker type rocking chair. That's just like a really curvy rocking chair. You guys would know it if you saw it. But I was like, there are so many like little things that you forget about how much commonality we used to have. And so those little things kind of speak to me, and maybe that's some of the stuff that's lost, like in the new generation. Like they're not going to be like, oh, those. Yeah, that's. The stonewash mom jeans. Oh my god, I wore those.
And that wood paneling. Look at that wood paneling.
Yeah, don't even get me
hipsters coming into Starbucks with their 40-pound portable typewriters and slamming them on the counter. Wearing their fedoras.
Yes. Oh my god, I've had a couple of those antique typewriters, and not even like super antique, maybe like 1950s, 60s. Kind of thing. Oh my god! I mean, I wanted to be
heavy.
like a hipster when I was I wanted to be like a hipster when I was a kid, and it's like, and granted, I didn't have a computer back then, so it was like, okay, it was at least a way I could do it. But man, I was like, this is frustrating as fuck. Like you can't get an idea out because you're just like backspace. Oh wait, the RQ sticks. Damn it! No, it's never like
hardcore.
that though. It's never.
I made a movie with a very old typewriter. I think that one was from like the 20s that we used in typeface. Mm-hmm. And, that thing was a beast.
Yes. I can't wait to see the full version of that.
Soon.
Yes.
Actually, we're getting it rescored right now. I got a great composer who's actually composing all new music for the movie, and I'm very excited to get that one out.
Is it a Smith & Corona?
I don't remember
that's the only brand I can think of
the
right now.
typewriter was. It may have been, So I got rid of the typewriter years ago. It started not working anymore. The keys were all gummed up, and You know, we put that thing through the ringer for the movie. You know.
Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't have to type words on the page. Just keep going. Who cares?
When you're splashing blood all around the typewriter, yeah, you kind of end up fucking up. The keys.
an antique typewriter. There's somebody out there right now, like, oh my god, did you know that was a 1922 Smith and Corona? It's like worth like.
I know. We made a typewriter snuff movie, right? They're like, no,
That's right.
No.
But then going back to her office, okay, so this is very common in these movies, and like this is something you couldn't do today. But she walks in and like the pages are on the floor for some odd reason, whatever. They scattered everywhere. Like that would freak you the fuck out. Like, oh my god, did I lose anything? Like, I mean, it was all in a contained room, so it wasn't like the whole like they sit their manuscript on a bench, like a park bench, and the wind blows and everything's gone. But she's looking at the pages and this isn't what she's written. But then she also says, this is what I've been wasting my time on. So are we to think she thinks that she's being possessed to start out with, and then thinking, maybe does she go into some kind of fugue state normally when she writes? Or what? Like, those are two completely different, like, thoughts to me.
I just take that scene as that, you know, it's kind of, some mysterious writing that she feels she has no hand in. And, you know, what the hell is this? It's just another weird thing in this film, you know. This whole movie is like, it's almost dream after dream after dream. What is real? What is not real? What's reality? What's not reality? You know?
Yeah, I guess she's not concerned enough.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, but then again, like you said, she's been dreaming and doing shit and whatever, so she's probably like, who knows what I'm doing when I'm doing my crack in the middle of the night, right? She has, like, the dream sequence with, and this, I'm gonna say it right now, Doug and Mo, had you not said it, I would have fucking said it immediately. Fucking Torgo walks in the goddamn room. The fuck? I'm the caretaker, Mom. I take care of things while he's away.
Oh, God. Manos.
Oh, my
Crazy
God.
Charles Pinion.
But yeah, so heed the call of the dark metal.
Excuse me, why the fuck are you in my basement?
Right. Debbie? Debbie, where are you? If you guys have
That's
never
my little
seen
girl.
Manos
She'll
Hands of Fate,
understand.
okay? Yeah. I'm like, if you don't understand any of the references that I'm making, then you just stop listening.
Do we get the syringes after this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought
that's
so.
the syringe part.
Yeah.
And that's a very striking thing.
So he gives that great speech. He gives that great speech about the dark metal, and
Right.
and then all of a sudden she has then she has the syringes in her eyes.
But it's another dream. It's another dream. So, you know, don't worry, guys. Laurel's okay. But go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that it's a very striking point of the DVD cover that Jason Gilmore has done for you guys. Like,
yes.
Really, really cool art on the DVD for this one.
Yes. So yeah, we have like the syringes in her eyes. We've got the way cooler looking nail halo twice. Kind of in symmetry, small and big. This is where we come back and like Eric left and she's mad because he didn't write a note and he's just like, well, you were asleep. But this is when he has that rousing speech about her fucking work.
You can't scrap the whole 13 chapters, even the love scene. I love that scene.
Like,
he's just so impassioned about it.
Okay,
you know?
She didn't even know that he bought a new used car, yet he's read every page of her work. Like, I mean, this is a very imbalanced relationship here, Eric. I think you need to reevaluate and you need to get out.
He's a good boyfriend.
You're putting way more into it than she is. Yes, he is. Oh no, but this is when they find, oh my God. That's when they find the mask.
Oh, right, yeah.
It looks old. It is literally a white plastic cat mask. It is A, not a fetish mask. B, they probably cut the little piece of elastic off of it. It is just like a Am I right?
No,
though?
you're
Is
so
that not just
wrong.
a
You're so
blast?
wrong. You see the mask
Yeah,
break later. It is a
Yeah.
made
No.
mask. It's
They pick it up
ceramic,
and
I
drop
believe.
it. They pick it up and drop it like 3 times.
Okay. Yeah.
Just-
But then later.
That was the weird
But
part
see-
about it. It's like,
And you
it
know,
already
the mask,
dropped. It
the
already-
mask actually looks really cool, and that is one thing that kind of sucks is, is the print is so bad. It's not super clear. It is kind of hard to see stuff very well. You don't get, there's some stills of that mask, and the stills look really cool. Actually, I think that mask is pretty cool.
Well, but the mask shows up later, and I feel like it's a different mask. I feel like it was a porcelain mask later, but I feel like when they found it, it was a white, flimsy-ass costume mask.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
But I'm wrong? Is it the same one? Because I felt like it was a different one later.
It's a
when she
low-budget
has
movie.
it, like,
I'm
in her
guessing it's
room.
the same mask.
I know! Hey, come
They can't
on.
afford 2 masks.
Because I even put in the next scene, I put, now mask is porcelain and painted?
It's like, bitch, we only got this one mask. You better not fuck it up.
Yeah, they probably had to go back. They're like, you already fucking broke the goddamn mask. You were not supposed to break the goddamn mask until we shot the other scene.
It seemed like they dropped the same mask like 3 times though. 'Cause
Yeah.
It kept on
Well, and
getting
you can see,
progressively
I
more
think when
disintegrated.
it's dropped the second time, there's like a little chunk kind of already missing out of it. That was a hard scene to cut. Once again, I had to cut that frame by frame, so trying to match that perfectly to that original cut was
Right.
not easy.
Right. Well, then you also have I'm not faulting them for this. This is a great thing to build in. They have that whole like everything could be a dream
Right.
thing. So if they break the mask a bunch of times, it may have just been a dream when they broke it the first time, Slade.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah. So she has that like crucifixion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Daydream.
such a
That's pretty fucking
It's
cool.
Oh,
really
that's so
wild.
awesome.
I thought that was pretty.
You're like,
fucking
oh yeah, you taste so good. Nom, 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 nom.
I love that scene. I mean, it's so cool. She
Yeah.
puts on the mask, and when she looks through the mask, she sees herself crucified, being ate by zombies, and it's just so visually cool. And that's what's great about this movie, is all the kind of artistic visual flair that's in there. I think Wild Bill also made the cross. I don't remember exactly the story, but I believe they got some crazy looks walking around with that cross to go shoot that scene. I believe he told me.
I can imagine. We've got a cross and we got some chicks that look like they just walked out of
Zombies.
The Exorcist. Hey! Hey, everybody.
We're filming a movie. Could you please stand back? Yeah, there's a lot of scenes in the movie that just take and jump out that's like, oh, this is not going anywhere where I thought it would. And it's just wild and imaginative in so many parts.
This is a movie that I think even in that time, if they could have gotten somebody to back them a little bit, it could have had a lot more. You can see that they could have gone much farther had they had the money and the time and the resources.
I truly believe if this was shot on film, this would already be a cult classic. You'd be seeing this put out by Vinegar Syndrome or, whoever, and everyone would be swooning over it, I think this is a great example of, film versus video and how people perceive, the differences between the two.
When she wakes up, she says, okay, are you ready? Oh, God, what's happening to me? I wrote it down phonetically. That's exactly what
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Okay, there we go. I'm available for voiceover work if you need me, Tony. Eric sleeps with his guitar. Did you guys
That's what you
notice that?
do when you play a guitar. Oh, yeah.
That's right. Cause,
I've slept with my guitar. Yeah.
You're just like, whatever, bitch. Yes, you sleep with your guitar. But she's got to go to cover the winter garden, which is a desolate arboretum or botanical garden.
It almost looks like it's in a mall.
Yeah.
And originally, and she starts going through all these steps. It's another just great location.
She's out. She tells him to come back, right? She tells Eric to come back. I'm going to be at the winter garden, but she tells him to come back. And he comes back. She's not there. He finds...
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. She doesn't tell him to come back. He gets a phone call, and it's from the Madleys, pretending to be her.
Oh, okay. Okay. Ding, ding, ding. There's like a little bit of blood on the sheets. Like, we're not talking like somebody got axed to death blood. We're talking somebody started their period. Somebody had a nosebleed.
Why do
blood, and
they always
out,
touch it?
And he touches it.
Just smell or lick it.
And smell it.
That's the rule.
Or you can even...
It's definitely blood.
It's blood.
Or taste it.
Okay?
They taste it, too, as it would be the other way, right? They either smell it, taste it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what, like, a pool of blood would feel like? I mean, I feel like if I got close enough to blood, I would know, like, oh, it's got an iron smell. It's blood. Like, I would know if it was blood or not. But, like, what does, like, touching it do for you? Because I've never touched a puddle of blood to be able to say, oh, that's blood. Yep, that's blood. Mm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that Karo syrup. It's yummy.
Now, when they take and show up, is this before or after the vagina makeup? Because he takes and walks in, and I'm like, whoa, that is totally on par.
Well, you know what's crazy is I don't know, if you notice his hair in this movie, but he gave himself like a fake receding hairline. He cut his hair back to make it look receding, so he'd look older, which is some dedication. That's really cool.
Really?
Yeah.
But no, I did notice that he had a receding hairline and stuff, but I didn't know he did that on purpose to make him look older.
Yeah.
So, like, how old was he? Because I
don't think he was very old at this point. I think he had just done Twisted Issues, and I think he's only like maybe 18 or 19, maybe, or early 20s. Yeah, he's
good on him.
Yeah, very cool.
Good on him, because I did kind of notice that I can't say that I noticed that he had a receding hairline, but I did kind of notice when you say it.
Sure.
And it did make me think he was a little older. Okay. Right. God. Good job.
So this is when Eric is confronted by the Madleys, Mrs. Madley and Mr. Madley, and Charles gives a great speech, and there's a whole part where she spits the blood in his mouth, in Eric's mouth, Mrs. Madley does.
Tolerance.
I put Sid. It's really Mr. Madley, because Sid Vicious and Dana.
Yeah, totally.
In my notes, but we have so much to discuss. Like, here they're getting some Hellraiser vibes, right? Yep. Ooh, the agony, the pain. Let's make love just one last time.
That's my favorite one from That's such a great line.
We got, like, Paul Stanley, like a dark god, Paul Stanley, Frankenfurter sort of creature or something. That's the way I interpreted it.
He's got fabulous nails.
Yes.
He reminds me of, Wild Bill shows up, the Dark God finally shows up, and he reminds me of a mix between Glenn Danzig and Sammy Kerr from Trick or Treat.
When they're in situations where they're locked in a house by supernatural means, why do they never try and break the windows?
That's a good question. Yeah. They always, or even if they're just in a house and they're trying to get out. I mean, it doesn't even have to be supernatural. They never try to break the windows. They try for minutes and minutes to open the door, like it's the only option. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, you get some. There's dead dudes in the house. They try to break the windows. That doesn't go very well.
And then most of the time, you have the killer actually, like, as they're trying to fix the door, the killer comically comes through the window.
Right.
Always a good one. Like, Laurel ends up back at that trailer with Mort, with a T. Mm-hmm. It's Mrs. Dodd.
Mrs. Dodd,
yeah.
Dodd. I said Mrs. Moody.
Yeah,
I don't know where the fuck I got that. Is he in on it from the very get-go?
I'm thinking so. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think so? I mean, he led her there to Mrs. Dodd or whatever. But the entire town is in on this.
The whole town has heeded the call of the dark metal.
Dark metal!
I thought the syringe, like, popping out of his finger and whatever the hell was popping out of her shoulder, like, those were kind of those cool shots, too, to kind of reinforce that it's, like, all fucked up, like, alternate universe.
When it keeps it in that dreamlike quality, the whole movie just plays almost like a series of weird dreams.
What kind of bothered me is it never, like, went back to her book. Shouldn't there be, like, a scene where, like, Mort comes back with her book and being like, I don't know, she sent this to me, she called me, and what the fuck? I've never heard from her again. But I'm going to publish this.
I think it seemed like kind of like a vehicle to take and keep her in the house.
So maybe he did all this to give her inspiration.
I don't know.
In a way.
Perhaps.
Tony, weigh in here.
I think it's all about the Dark God. I think the novel didn't even matter. Who cares?
You never really kind of got that whole, like, why is she targeted? I mean, is it because she's already got a darkness in her because she's writing horror? I'm sorry, these are just unanswered questions. I don't think anybody has an answer for it. But, you know, and clearly they assume, or we can assume, she doesn't really have any family besides her, like, Batman half shirt wearing boyfriend.
Who now has a giant vagina in his chest.
Yes.
Which,
hello, best of both worlds. Come on, people.
She reaches in and pulls those guts out. And it...
Yes. I've seen this before. Isn't it supposed to be a gun?
Yep.
Videodrome. Yeah.
All hail the new flesh. I'm guessing they're not truly destroyed, that they're just sent back to whatever plane that they was mentioned out with the trailer.
Again, like a Hellraiser type thing.
Yeah.
That the trailer represents hell.
I'm just curious, whether or not the boyfriend was just killed or just sent back to, but his body was still there, so I don't know.
Well, he was still there, and he was almost like turning when he was saying to her, "Oh my God!" Like he knew something was happening. He's like, "Okay, let's just make love one more time." Like, I think he was still he was losing whatever his humanity, but turning into some kind of demon. I don't think he was really dying.
Yeah, and finds that last
I think that's what
moment
the milk thing was. You know, when she spits in his mouth, and there's that line about the drinking of the milk. I think it kind of turns him into almost a demonoid type creature. You know, he's kind of slowly going both ways.
Yeah, like he's got that moment. Yeah, that moment before, when he's still somewhat has his wits. Yeah, I think all in all, I'm going to say this right now. I think Eric was a good fucking dude. People, I think Eric was a good guy.
Eric rocks.
But
Eric.
The closing shots when they're taking in, she takes and stabs the Dark God, and he takes and falls over. Now she takes and kind of raises that up to the camera, and I wonder if that's kind of to take and insinuate that the story's not over with, or if there was there any footage after that was left.
Nope, that was the end. That was the end.
I thought that was kind of a cool shot because it kind of leaves it kind of what's going to take and happen next, if she's going to keep that
right.
or.
But Slade, if you made a movie in this time period, you didn't close it off.
All the sequels.
Even if there's a 0.2% chance that somebody will pick this up, we need to have it open for a sequel. Come on.
Well, I think any good movie too leaves things kind of open a lot of the times, so it lets you think and kind of reflect and come to your own conclusions of what you think is going to happen next in the story.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that Hollywood studio movies and SOV movies have a difference in, is that there was nobody behind them going, "Oh no, you can't have it like that.
Right.
You got to have some closure." Blah blah blah.
Love story.
Right. So that's yet another reason to embrace independent horror, because there's nobody there telling them, no, it's not going to test well with audience.
I mean, could you imagine this movie being pitched to a Hollywood studio? They would make them take everything out. They'd be like, no on the crucifixion, no on the blood sex, no on the, vaginal wounds.
Oh my God, we can't get the rights to that Batman
logo. We won't be able to sell this in China. We got to remove this and this.
Right.
Uh-huh.
That Wicker Throne is copywritten by Pier 1, circa 1987. Okay, we can't use it.
That's one of my biggest complaints about cinema now. I think it's just, I don't think it's necessarily that it's problems with, movies per se, but maybe just me personally, that I've seen so many films that it's hard to take in, surprise me anymore with plot lines or, gags or other stuff. So when stuff like that takes and comes up and it's like, oh, okay, this is totally different, and I'm awake now and I'm ready to take and consume this movie. So But it's few and far between sometimes.
And I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because a lot of times I will go in and watch a theater movie, and at the end I'll be like, oh, okay, this is like really vague, whatever. And it's because it's a theater movie, I'm expecting to walk out like having everything like wrapped in a package for me. And so sometimes it's like almost frustrating, but if I watch a movie that's not a studio release, I prefer it to have a very open ending.
Yeah.
And it's maybe just, like I said, what I've been conditioned to think. Because it's like, there's the other thing too. If it's a theatrical movie and they leave things way open, you're just like, oh my God, you're just begging for a sequel.
And just, I'm probably going to get crucified myself for taking and saying this, but like, I enjoy the Marvel films, but there is no element of surprise really to any of them. You know how it's gonna they're all you know how they're gonna progress, the beats that are gonna be taken. They're well shot, well acted, but there's no real big surprises. So I've gotten a lot of flack for people just being like, I like them. I've always read a lot of comments growing up, but like they're just like. They're fine. They're good popcorn movies just they can put on when you just want to turn your brain off.
I think the one semi-exception was, and I'm this stupid, but not the last Avengers, but the one before. Like, I think people were surprised that they left it there, but I don't think anybody walked out. I think everybody walked out of the theater going, but then like 2 minutes later they were like, everybody's gonna come back.
I just thought.
They're doing another movie. Everybody's going to come back. Everything's going to be fine. We're going to lose, like, maybe 2 principal characters.
You lose all that tension, and once that happens, then it's just, like, meh. For me, personally.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm probably... people.
Well, there is no tension, because as long as the movie makes money, they'll make another, and another, and another.
Especially
and it's an
China.
industry at this point. I don't even consider those films, personally. I think it's more of an industry. I mean... I'm not a fan of the comic book.
All right, Scorsese.
But they say
right?
It's like they say, okay, that's the last Avengers movie. Who cares? Because then it's like, okay, but we're not going to do any more Captain America movies, but we're still going to do freaking Black Panther movies. Like,
but then Captain America will show up. You know what I mean? Like, they'll bring back the characters as long as people give them their money.
He might be a little fat, a little grumpy, but he's going to be there, at some point in time. Yeah, and it's like...
But you watch films like this, and you're like, oh, it's like 5 minutes in, it's like, holy shit, they just killed off the main character, and I have no idea what's happening. Like, you get surprised with SOV and just... You know, independent productions. It's just they just make the film that they want, and if you got the imagination to fill in the gaps, then you can get a lot of enjoyment out of it.
And that is the key. That is the key right there. And I think that's why the three of us are sitting here talking about these types of movies, and why we enjoy modern low-budget horror, because we understand that it can't all be spoon-fed to us. Even if the filmmaker could, they couldn't afford it. And so we appreciate that it doesn't get spoon-fed to us in these kinds of things. And
we appreciate you, Tony, for taking and bringing these movies to us.
Yes. So I watched another SOVhorror.com release, The Spirit Gallery, the other day.
Oh, nice.
And I was watching it. I didn't know if I needed to take notes or not, because I didn't know if we were going to do this for the podcast. And the guys were like, well, I think we can only do one show, which obviously we're almost 2 hours into the show. So, yeah, good call, boys. But, like, I'm watching it, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this is maybe a little too legit for us to watch.
It's quite good.
I mean, it's very well done. I mean, the lead in that, she really reminded me a lot of, like, a young Winona Ryder or Elizabeth Reeser. And, like... I was just like, wow. I kept expecting cheese, and I never got cheese. I was like, this is just a movie that was really, really tight, but just filmed on video.
Yep. Oh, Spirit Gallery is great. Yeah. Spirit Gallery, yeah. I mean, it's got great production value, great acting, a great story. Another great one. I love that movie.
Yeah. And it's simple. So we probably won't do it on this show because, like I said, it is too legit. It's simple, You can tell they worked within what they had, like, you know, within the budget and the constraints they had. They had a really, really awesome set with, what is that place? So
it's like an airplane
there's
hangar
like,
or something, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I was just like, is this the construction of a, like, it almost reminded me of, like, they were building a field house or something, or stadium, but, like, they had that, like, elevator thing that went across the top. Yeah. Like, that was awesome, and they used it a lot, and it's like, I'm sure they were like, they knew the head construction guy or somebody, and they're like, hey, can we shoot after hours? But they used that to the extent they needed to. They used the effects they needed to. That's a really good movie, guys.
Well, it cost money, you know. It was, I believe that was, I think they spent about $11,000 making that movie. I mean, and it looks even more than that, you know. It really does have a good look to it.
Yeah.
It's very well made.
Okay, so this one, I'm going to rate it. All right, Tony, tell the folks our scale.
Turkey, 0, nothing, garbage. 1 is bad, 2 is fair, 3 is good, 4 is great, 5 is amazing.
Tony, what do you get?
I give it a 5. I absolutely love this movie. Every frame of this movie. I watched it again last night. I hadn't watched it in a while, and I re-edited this movie. I've seen this movie probably 150 times, and I watched it again last night, and my lady even told me, she's like, you won't stop smiling the whole time you're watching this. I mean, and I don't. It's a fun movie. It's got so many great visuals, so many great setups. It's really well made. I mean, you got Charles Pinion, Hugh Gallagher, David Williams. I mean, just what a great time in SOV history. You know, 89, 90. Just, I love this movie. 5 stars.
Okay, so knowing that your lady is maybe not necessarily like as into this as you, but has been with you for a long time, knows what you like. Has she sat down and watched it, and what would her rating be? Do you
know what? Actually, she's right here. What would you give Metal Noir, babe? Metal Noir, 5 scale.
3.
She'd give it a 3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's you know, she's a big Disney fan. She's a Disney person. I'm an SOV person. And we kind of torture each other with our movie choices. But we both also respect each other's genres. You know what I mean? And SOVs have grown on her. She's actually a Polonia Brothers fan these days. You know?
Woo, okay. See, I mean, it's to each his own. This is a niche, and you know, Disney stuff is a niche. Everybody has their thing. Yep. So, Slade?
I was going to give it a 4. The lead performances in this were their dialogue was kind of at times taken elevated up to masterclass, but all the visuals and the cool set pieces and just the gore and all the makeup and everything it was great. Really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm gonna go right in between you two. I'm giving it a 4.5 because I say 0.5s are okay. So exactly the same things you guys all said. It was so fun. We will be back hopefully next week. We seem to be on a schedule. For those of you who are wondering where the In the Mic of Madness podcast is, Jason moved to the mountains. Teddy Brown thinks he's like fighting Sasquatch for internet. And he kind of is. He doesn't have a whole lot of internet. But we are working some things out, and we will be back hopefully within the next week with Friday the 13th, part 5.
Nice.
So, yeah. So, stay tuned, everybody.
One of mine, too.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. Hey, baby. Hey, baby.
Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. I'll edit that so we are all together. Damn enchiladas. All right, guys. We are the SOBs. Who?
Love SOV.